On the line, we're joined by Head of Legal and Investigations at Corruption Watch, Debra Muthemwa-Thumboto, to discuss this case, but also the state of witnesses and whistleblower protection in the country. Debra, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Good morning to your viewers.
So we heard Ephraim Dhlamini claiming that some pretty high-profile people had been linked to the killing of people who'd spoken out about the corruption in the Estina project. He also speaks about how he himself is now in danger, and even goes on to say that, there is the law, but he feels like the law doesn't protect him, and so he'll have to do some of the work himself. I mean, this issue of a lack of protection of people who come forward, just how bad is it?
Unfortunately, it's quite bad. South Africa does have some very sophisticated laws around whistleblower protection. We have the Protected Disclosures Act, but that works within the working environment. So it operates within the working or employer-employee relationship, with extended definitions of both of those. And then we also have the Witness Protection Act, which operates within the criminal realm. So when a crime has been committed and somebody is a witness in a particularly high-profile crime, the Office for Witness Protection could step in and protect those witnesses. That has operated very well in the past. However, the day-to-day experiences of people coming forward with information is quite dire, and it's much more needs to be done to afford them the protections that our sophisticated legal framework claims to afford them.
Debra, at which point can a witness go into witness protection? Does there have to be a criminal case, for example, in the process, or in the matter of Bob Dhlamini, where it's really just an inquiry, and we're not sure if there's going to be any prosecutions after that? Can he be offered witness protection?
Yes, I mean, that's a very valid question. So it's actually something that will be considered by the Office for Witness Protection on a case-by-case basis. This is an office that you would find housed within the National Prosecuting Authority. So if you approach any NPA office, you'd be able to be directed to the Office for Witness Protection, and then you would make an application to the Officer for Witness Protection, and that would be assessed on the merits of the case. And I don't think it's completely necessary for an active investigation to be in place. I think if there's a reasonable apprehension of harm, then one could make such an application. Then it's a substantive decision on the part of the Office for Witness Protection. But it's also not a guarantee that you will be protected. And furthermore, witness protection is, in that sense, is not easy, because it will often entail some measure of relocation, some destabilization in your own day-to-day life. So although it's an option, there's no guarantee, and of course it will include some instability in your personal life.
And another question about that process is, do we know how long it takes? So, for instance, we know with issues around protection orders for women and children, if they're in a situation where they're in a violent situation, there is the criticism that, A, they are not enforced, and even when they are given, they take a while to be issued. Is this the case with witness protection as well, where by the time I think someone is going to the office to make this application, they are in imminent danger? So how long does that process take? Are there delays?
So I wouldn't be able to speak to that information as much as the stats and the general information of the workings of the office are quite well publicized and known. It's also quite a secretive office because of the fact that it's witness protection. I would hope that there aren't unnecessary delays, but just to speak to your example of protection orders, that's a very true reality for most South Africans, and I think there is no guarantee that it would be a quick process. However, I can say that from the reports that are tabled before the Parliamentary Committee on Justice and Correctional Services by this particular office, the stats are quite good. They show a high rate of success, and then so on that basis, one would assume that they are perhaps more efficient than many other government processes.
Debra, earlier on you spoke about the logistics of witness protection and how it can be disruptive to anybody's life. In South Africa, of course, we know that there's a high dependency on each individual. If you happen to be a breadwinner, maybe you've got 5 other people that rely on you to be around. So a job, for example, in security would be one thing to consider. Another thing would be, what happens to the rest of your family? So if I can't get to Googs, for example, I may then want to threaten her mother, her grandmother, her brother. What happens to those people? Do they also go into witness protection? And I suppose the last question is, what else can a person do then other than go into witness protection? And maybe you can tell us as the head of legal at Corruption Watch, what other methods people can then use other than putting their lives in danger?
Yes. So to answer your first question, the logistics are very much determined on a case-by-case basis. We have worked with a particular whistleblower or community organizer whose life was in danger. She was asked to be brought into, she was actually approached by the Office for Witness Protection to come into witness protection, herself and her family. And it would have had such a destabilizing effect that, you know, her children, who aren't very young, they're of working age, who had just secured jobs, would have had to leave those places of employment. And with the current unemployment crisis in the country, there was no guarantee that they would be able to find alternative employment. So she actually refused the witness protection and continued to live with constant threats on her life. So it's really something that's determined by a case-by-case basis. However, if there's a reasonable apprehension that the threat to one's life will extend beyond that one individual and even extend to their family and their friends, the Office for Witness Protection would certainly be in a position to make that determination on the merits. Then I think your second question was centered around alternative options. Unfortunately, you know, we also see, and I think perhaps I should confirm that there's a distinction between witness protection, so witnesses in a criminal matter, and whistleblower protection, which is, you know, whistleblowers that are coming forward with information of impropriety within their working environment or other spaces. There is the option to approach something like Corruption Watch anonymously. That has happened in the past. However, although our legal framework is quite sophisticated, there isn't even much case law on witness protection and how whistleblowers as well have been protected, and how, you know, their right to not suffer occupational detriment when they come forward with stories or information about impropriety within their place of work. There isn't much case law on how that actually operates on a day-to-day basis. So although these issues aren't new, they aren't very much developed in our law and in society in general.
Thank you, Debra. That's where we're going to have to leave it. That's the head of legal and investigations at Corruption Watch joining us this morning.